On Earth, deep inside a mountain command center, military leaders gathered around a glowing table showing a live map of nearby star systems. Red markers blinked over 3 locations, all recent attacks on human convoys. General Okafor stood at the head of the table, arms crossed. 3 attacks. 3 warnings sent to the Council, 2 ignored outright. This pattern will not stop on its own. Beside him, Admiral Reyes spoke calmly. The Council does not see us as a threat, so they do not see us as a priority. That has to change. Not through violence first, but through a clear warning they cannot misunderstand. There is a concept in psychology called anchoring bias. It means the first piece of information a person receives about something often shapes every judgment that follows, even when new evidence appears later. The galaxy's first impression of Earth had been formed decades ago, from limited and outdated reports, primitive technology, disorganized nations, minor military presence. That anchor had never been updated. Earth's leaders understood this. Words alone would not break an old anchor. Only a clear, undeniable action would. We send one final diplomatic warning, Okafor said. Formal, documented, public if possible. After that, if they ignore us again, we let our actions speak instead. A message was drafted and sent directly to the Galactic Council. Attacks on unarmed human convoys will no longer be tolerated. Earth seeks peace, not conflict. But peace requires respect, and respect must be earned in both directions. The Council received the message during a routine session. Many delegates barely reacted. One younger delegate actually laughed quietly before catching himself. A warning, said the insectoid delegate from before, amused. From a species that has existed as a spacefaring power for what, a single century? Bold. Councillor Thren, however, studied the message carefully. Notice the wording, he said. They do not threaten first. They ask for respect. That is not the language of a species trying to provoke war. That is the language of a species that has already decided it will not be pushed further, and knows exactly what it is capable of if pushed. Few listened to him. The Council formally dismissed the warning as posturing, and moved forward with plans to send a larger fleet, led by a commander named Dreveth, known across several alien systems for his aggressive, no-patience reputation. Meanwhile, hidden deep within an asteroid shipyard near Earth's outer colonies, something quiet but important was happening. Engineers worked around the clock on a new class of ship, faster, smarter, built using lessons learned from every previous encounter with alien raiders. These were not the same ships that had first left Earth decades ago. There is a psychological principle called the mere exposure effect, the idea that people, and often other intelligent species, grow more comfortable with something the more familiar it becomes, even if their first impression was negative. Earth's strategy relied on the opposite approach, staying just unfamiliar enough that no one could accurately predict their next move. Every alien nation still pictured Earth as it was 100 years ago. Almost none of them knew how much had changed. Captain Voss, given a short leave before his next mission, walked through the shipyard and watched the new vessels being finished. One of the lead engineers, a sharp young woman named Naomi Chen, greeted him with a proud smile. They still think we're the same convoy escorts from 100 years ago, she said. Let them think that, Voss replied. For now. Back at the Galactic Council, preparations for Commander Dreveth's fleet moved quickly. Confidence ran high. Nobody expected a serious fight. To most of the galaxy, this was simply a lesson that needed to be taught, a reminder to a young species that it did not yet belong at the table of true galactic powers. They believed they were about to teach humanity a lesson in humility. They had no idea they were about to walk straight into a trap. Humanity had already prepared for exactly this moment. Commander Dreveth's fleet moved through open space with confidence bordering on arrogance. 12 warships, far larger and more heavily armed than the raiders before them, approached what their scouts had identified as a routine human supply convoy. 3 cargo ships and a single small escort. Similar to reports from previous encounters, this will be quick, Dreveth said to his officers. A show of force. Disable their ships, capture their crew, and send a clear message back to Earth, obedience or destruction. There is a psychological idea called the confirmation bias. the tendency to notice and trust information that matches what you already believe, while ignoring information that does not. Draveth's scouts had seen a small convoy and assumed, based on old reports, that this meant a weak convoy. They were not looking for signs of a trap. They were looking for confirmation of what they already expected to find. They found something else entirely. As Draveth's fleet closed in, the human escort ship did not retreat or panic. Instead, it sent a short, calm message across open comms. "You are entering restricted human space. Turn back now," Draveth laughed. Restricted space. From 4 ships. He gave the order to advance. That was the signal. Space around the convoy shimmered, and suddenly the small escort was not alone. A dozen human warships decloaked in a tight formation, engines glowing, weapons already locked. These were the new ships from the shipyard, faster, sharper, and built specifically to counter exactly this kind of attack. "This is not a convoy," one of Draveth's officers said, voice tight with alarm. "This is a fleet." "Impossible," Draveth snapped. But his sensors confirmed it. 12 human warships perfectly positioned, weapons already tracking his fleet's most vulnerable points. The battle began not with chaos, but with precision. Human ships moved in coordinated pairs, striking engines and weapon systems first, avoiding unnecessary destruction where possible, the same restrained tactic Voss had used during the very first Raider attack. This was not random violence. This was a lesson, delivered with exact control. Aboard one human warship, a young officer named Ensign Reyes Park, no relation to the admiral, gripped her console as the ship shook from a nearby explosion. Her hands trembled slightly, but her mind stayed clear, running through the same drills she had practiced 100 times in simulation. There is a psychological effect called stress inoculation. The idea that repeated, controlled exposure to a stressful situation in training makes the real event feel more manageable when it finally happens. Every human crew member in this battle had trained under simulated combat conditions designed to feel almost exactly like this. Fear did not disappear, but it no longer controlled their actions. "Systems steady," she said, voice firm despite the shaking ship. "Target locked." Draveth's fleet fought back hard, but their larger ships struggled to maneuver against the smaller, faster human vessels. One alien warship took a direct hit to its main weapon array and drifted silently, powerless. Another attempted to retreat and was intercepted by 2 human ships working in perfect coordination. "Fall back," Draveth finally shouted, pride cracking under the reality of the battlefield. All ships retreat. But retreat was not simple. Human ships had already moved to block the most direct escape routes, not to destroy the fleeing ships, but to guide them, herding the surviving alien vessels away from the true convoy routes and toward open space where they could do no further harm. Within 20 minutes, the battle was over. 6 of Draveth's 12 ships were disabled. 2 had retreated early, damaged but functional. The remaining 4 managed to escape, badly shaken. Not a single human ship was lost. Draveth sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the wreckage of his once proud fleet on the screen. He had expected an easy convoy. He had walked without knowing it straight into a carefully planned trap. "Send word to the council," he said quietly, defeated. Tell them we were wrong." Aboard the lead human warship, Captain Voss watched the retreating alien fleet with no satisfaction, only quiet resolve. He opened a channel back to Earth. "Convoy secured," he said simply. Message delivered. Far away, across 100 alien worlds, reports of the battle began to spread. Fast, exaggerated, and impossible to ignore any longer. News of Draveth's defeat spread through the galaxy faster than any official report could contain it. On some alien worlds, the reaction was fear. Military leaders who had once dismissed humans as harmless suddenly began reviewing old reports, searching for any detail they had missed. On other worlds, the reaction was curiosity, even respect. A species this young surviving and winning against a larger, more experienced fleet was something worth understanding rather than underestimating. There is a psychological principle called the halo effect, the tendency for one impressive trait or event to change a person's, or a species' entire reputation, even beyond what that single event actually proves. Before the battle, Earth had one reputation: small, new, primitive. After the battle, That reputation flipped almost overnight into something far more intimidating. Even though humanity's true nature had not changed at all, only the galaxy's perception of it. At the Galactic Council, the mood was tense. Councillor Thren, once largely ignored, now found himself at the center of attention. "I warned this chamber," Thren said calmly, "that assuming weakness without evidence was carelessness, not wisdom. Now we have our evidence." Several delegates who had once mocked Earth's diplomatic warning now spoke carefully, almost cautiously, about reconsidering diplomatic relations with the human species. Requests for peaceful contact began arriving from smaller alien nations who saw an opportunity, not for conflict, but for alliance with a rising power. Not everyone reacted this way. In a private meeting far from official council eyes, Director Malkosh sat with a small group of allies, all from factions who still believed humans needed to be controlled or eliminated before they grew too strong to stop. "This changes nothing," Malkosh said coldly. "One battle does not make an empire. If anything, this proves they must be dealt with now, before they become impossible to defeat later. There is a concept in psychology called loss aversion. The idea that people fear losing power or status more strongly than they value gaining something new. Malkosh was not afraid of humans becoming enemies. He was afraid of losing his own faction's influence if humans became respected equals. That fear, more than logic, was now driving his decisions. Back on Earth, leaders faced a different kind of decision. "We could use this moment to demand fear," General Okafor said during a private council meeting. "Push our advantage. Make sure no one ever tests us again." Admiral Reyes shook her head slowly. "Fear creates obedience, not peace. If we push too hard now, we risk becoming exactly what they were afraid we might be. Dangerous, not trustworthy. We need respect, not terror." President Alvarez, watching quietly from the head of the table, finally spoke. "Send a new message to the Council. Not a threat, an offer. We proved we can defend ourselves. Now let's prove we can be trusted as allies, not just feared as opponents." The message went out within days. Earth does not seek dominance. Earth seeks a seat at the table as equals with mutual respect and fair terms for peace. This time the Council listened. Formal talks began, slow and cautious at first, between Earth representatives and several major alien powers. Small trade agreements formed. A handful of alien scientists requested official visits to human colonies, curious rather than hostile. For the first time since humanity's arrival in the wider galaxy, the mood shifted from suspicion toward something resembling genuine partnership. But not everyone accepted this new peace. In a hidden shipyard far from Council oversight, Malkosh continued gathering resources, ships, and allies loyal only to him. He watched the growing peace talks with quiet frustration, unwilling to accept a galaxy where humans were treated as equals. "They think this is over," he murmured to one of his lieutenants, watching a news broadcast celebrating the first official human-alien trade agreement. "It is not over. It is simply delayed." Far away, Captain Voss received a private communication flagged with unusual urgency. Unusual activity detected near a remote human colony. Activity that did not match any known trade route or peaceful visitor. He stared at the data for a long moment before speaking quietly to his crew. "Set a course," he said. "I don't think we're finished yet." The remote colony of New Haven sat quietly on the edge of human territory. A small settlement of just under 10,000 people, mostly farmers, engineers, and their families. It had no major military presence, only a modest defense grid, never designed to withstand a serious assault. It was exactly the kind of place Malkosh had chosen for his final move. His plan was simple and desperate. Strike an undefended human colony. Prove that Earth's new power was only good for defending convoys and warships, not its own people. If he could not stop the peace talks through politics, he would stop them through fear. Captain Voss arrived just hours before Malkosh's hidden fleet did, guided by the unusual activity report he had received earlier. His ship, along with 2 others pulled from nearby patrol routes, took position quietly near New Haven's outer defense perimeter. "If he's planning what I think he's planning," Voss said to his crew, "he's about to make the same mistake as everyone before him." Malkosh's fleet arrived under cloak, confident in the element of surprise. But the moment his ships decloaked near New Haven, Voss's ships were already waiting, positioned exactly where they needed to be. "You are not attacking a convoy this time," Voss said over open comms, his voice calm but firm. "You are attacking a home. Turn back now, or this ends very differently than you expect." Malkosh, watching from his command ship, felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the same feeling every enemy before him had felt in the final moments before realizing they had underestimated humanity one time too. Many. There is a psychological idea called the sunk cost fallacy, the tendency to continue a bad decision simply because so much has already been invested in it, even when stopping would clearly be the smarter choice. Malkosh had spent years building his faction, his resources, his reputation around the belief that humans needed to be crushed before they grew powerful. Admitting defeat now meant admitting all of that had been wasted. So, against every warning sign in front of him, he gave the order to attack anyway. The battle that followed was short, but intense. Voss's ships fought not just to win, but to protect. Every maneuver designed to shield New Haven's population first, engage the enemy second. Malkosh's fleet, smaller and more desperate than Draveth's had been, fought hard but without the coordination or discipline of a properly trained force. In the final moments of the battle, Malkosh's own command ship took heavy damage, drifting powerless just outside New Haven's defense perimeter. Voss's ship moved into position beside it, weapons trained but not firing. "Surrender," Voss said simply. "This ends now, one way or another." There was a long pause. Then finally Malkosh's voice came through, quiet and defeated. "Stand down. All ships stand down." New Haven was saved. Malkosh was captured and later handed over to council authorities, his faction publicly exposed and dismantled from within. The very attack meant to prove humanity's weakness became, instead, the final proof of its readiness to stand among the galaxy's true powers. In the weeks that followed, formal ceremonies were held both on Earth and within the Galactic Council chamber. Earth was no longer treated as a curiosity or a problem to be managed. It was welcomed officially and completely, as a recognized member of galactic society, not through fear, but through demonstrated strength paired with genuine restraint. Councillor Thren, standing before the full council during the ceremony, addressed the chamber one final time. "We once judged this species by assumption, not evidence," he said. "We nearly lost the chance to call them allies because of it. Let this be a lesson to every power in this chamber. Never mistake unfamiliarity for weakness." Aboard the Alden Watch, now stationed permanently near Earth's expanding diplomatic borders, Captain Voss watched the sun rise over Earth from orbit, calm as always, but quietly proud. "They came looking for an easy convoy," he said softly to his crew. "They found the beginning of a new galactic power. From that day on, no one in the galaxy ever called Earth weak again."